Hi, welcome to the Solutions Show. My name is Michael De Leon, and COA, City of Angels Radio, brings you this show every week, and we're talking about the solutions. And today we have two very guests, two people, part of a three-person team that is running for mayor and council in Hamilton, New Jersey. And so we have... I like to just say Mayor-elect Amy Inman, but I'll save that for a couple of months. But Amy Inman running for mayor of Hamilton, Township, New Jersey. In absence today is Joanne, but Don Ryland, who's running for council, is also with us. So, Amy, Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Joanne regrets. That.
Why don't we start kind of with an introduction, a little bit about what's happening, the statement you want to read from Joanne, who couldn't be with us today, and let everybody know what's happening in Hamilton.
Unfortunately, Joanne could not be with us today because she is really sick. She won't be able to attend our fundraiser later this evening either. But she is in full support of our cause. She's also certified by TOPAC to administer naloxone. And she's been an educator for 35 years as a teacher. And she believes in education about drug addiction.
Great, and as do you and Don.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, as part of your platform, I mean, I wish that, in this great city of Hamilton and this great county of Mercer and our great state of New Jersey, we weren't talking about it as an epidemic, but that's exactly what it is. So you mentioned naloxone, a drug for reversal of an opiate overdose if we get to the person in time. And now, thanks to Governor Christie and some amazing advocates in New Jersey, that's standard carried by all of our first responder heroes in the state. And now CVS has made New Jersey one of 12 states in the nation where you can get it without a prescription walking right into a pharmacy.
Yeah, I think that was such an amazing development. I read the CVS article, and I was so happy and so impressed by that. And I think it's further proof that we really do have such a big problem in not only the United States, but New Jersey, and more specifically in Hamilton.
Yes, well, I mean, there's a problem in Hamilton. Hamilton is not unique, not any different than any other suburban or rural enclave in our state. In fact, 85% of the overdose death that happened in New Jersey over the last 24 months happened in suburban and rural communities, and we're middle class and upper middle class households. This is not an under-the-bridge, poverty-stricken epidemic. This is an epidemic of suburban and rural America. And so, Don, I mean, you would consider Hamilton just an amazing town to grow up in, very suburban.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so that's why you said earlier Hamilton is no different. So what are kind of some of your ideas, your platform about addressing drug addiction in Hamilton Township?
Well, I've researched this a lot, and I found that Gloucester Township, New Jersey, has implemented a program called Project Save, which enables an intervention at the municipal level, which will keep addicts out of the criminal justice system and get them the help that they need at no cost to the taxpayers. And that's really the idea that I want to bring to council, that I want to bring to Hamilton Township. In Hamilton, it seems like the current administration has a not in my backyard policy where they're just ignoring the fact that we had more Narcan deployments than any other municipality in Mercer County. And that is only what we calculate and track through the police department. We're not tracking EMT and we're not tracking ER visits. That is only what we track through the police department. So that's true. So as the mayor, I would like to bring and introduce this Project Save into our municipal system. And then I know Don has other ideas as far as preventive measures, and I'd like to turn that over to him.
All right, Don?
Yes. No, how I see it, and I take a lot from my profession. As you may know, I've been a correction officer for the past 21 years. And working in the jail systems, I see firsthand what effects, drug abuse has on residents of Hamilton Township and the residents of Mercer County. And, when I look at how we can help combat this, what I'd like to focus a lot more is prevention. Definitely Amy has a plan to help with those who are going through the problem, but I think there should be a lot more focus on how we can prevent people, educating them. It definitely takes education, educating them, and especially our youth. Our youth, or they're very susceptible, and a lot. What I notice is that they often get into the drug addiction or using drugs because of being sociable, and in the prison system, you see the effects of it, and there has to be a concentrated effort on preventing our youth from making those decisions. Not only our youth, but also our adults, because, drug addiction isn't just with our youth. They're also with our adult residents as well.
Exactly. As a corrections officer, there's that old expression, and it's true. You walk the toughest beat in the state. And so I know in many ways I'm preaching to the choir, but you see it. You see besides an overdose death, the next serious negative consequence that an addict experiences with addiction is prison and jail. So you see it every day. I bet you that you've seen in your many years of corrections, you're now starting to see second generations, kids of the parents that you had locked up years ago. So you're seeing even a generational impact with addiction and heroin, aren't you?
Actually, I am. I know you made mention of second generations, but I'm actually saying third generations. I'm saying grandparents, the parents, and now the child, all being locked up in the facility at the same time.
Wow.
And definitely, so I'm saying 3 generations at this point in my career.
That's just crazy. And you see the cycle and the door revolving with all this generational effects of addiction. And not only that, nothing, I'm not criticizing, corrections or corrections officers, but the system, the correctional system really doesn't rehabilitate and really doesn't address addiction in the aspect of treating addiction. We're just dealing with the penal consequences of criminal activity. So as Amy Inman brought up, something on the front end, like a Project SAVE, modeled after Gloucester Township, New Jersey's program that was really implemented years ago by Chief Harry Earl. And the Project SAVE program, bringing it to Hamilton, is, I think, one of the most important things and the most important parts of Amy Inman's platform, in that it's true prevention. If you can get a girl or a boy that's in early addiction, and you can have them in front of a municipal judge for shoplifting, for breaking into a car, and the judge can see that drugs are a foundational part of why they're committing criminal activity. And you have a substance abuse counselor in the municipal courtroom, and that person is able to work with the prosecutor and the defendant. Well, we might be able to get that person redirected so we don't find her or him in front of a superior court judge in 2, 3, 4 years with robbery charges.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's basically what we're trying to accomplish with that, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
so this current administration is just, I get it. Do they think if we don't talk about this, the problem will just go away?
it seems that way. I mean, this current administration invested $1.1 million in an animal shelter, which is wonderful. We definitely need to care for our stray animals, but we also need to care for our citizens. And we've only invested $27,000 into drug education in our school system. That's all that Hamilton administration has contributed to education for drugs in our school system. And as a mother with a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old in Hamilton Township Public Schools, that scares me. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know if you just heard what I said.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that's not enough. I mean,
It's not enough.
this administration, again, just like you reiterated, I don't want to minimize the importance of an animal shelter, but I believe human life is paramount, and it's what it's costing Hamilton, what it's costing Mercer County to not address it is tenfold.
And what's important, and I can definitely can tell you this, is that when we spoke earlier, about, and I spoke also earlier too about how I see the effects of how drug addiction has affected our those coming to the prison system. And Amy just mentioned how the township has only dedicated a small amount towards prevention within our Hamilton school system. Well, you will find that by the time they get to become adults and have started the life of crime, or at least coming into the jail system, that drug use has started way before. It has actually started during the high school years, and had just evolved. So we, again, in terms of prevention, if we did allocate more funds and pay more attention to prevention aspects, maybe we can avoid the rehabilitation aspect that we still have to do, and it still is an added cost.
Well, I believe we need a mayor and a council that gets it, and rather than, in my experience with Hamilton Council, I was really experiencing. I believe I witnessed 4, maybe 5 of the most immature people fighting and bickering with people and not addressing issues.
Yes.
What they did with the City of Angels program, basically pushing that organization out of Hamilton, it just was disgusting. And it's going to hurt Hamilton far more than they imagined. And I just don't believe they were open. They were closed-minded. It was led by a person that just allowed people to speak, but just disputed things he disagreed with, rather than having an open mind from people who were experiencing. I don't know how you get more experience than a parent who's lost a child and then become an advocate to prevent other parents from losing their children. And interventionists and recovery coaches. This is a nonprofit organization based in Hamilton, New Jersey, and because of personality conflicts with the councilman that is involved in City of Angels, they just use it as a grudge match to get City of Angels to leave Hamilton. And so that does nothing for the citizens of the township.
No, it doesn't.
What do the citizens of Hamilton need to know, from an Inman administration? How are things going to be different in that regard?
Well, I just first and foremost want to reiterate that we have an epidemic in Hamilton. We've had more Narcan deployments than any other municipality in Mercer County. And we have an organization that is very distinctly different from other nonprofit organizations that reside in Hamilton, in that it is 100% volunteer. Not a single person at the City of Angels takes a salary out of the City of Angels. All of the money, all of the donations go toward people, citizens of Hamilton Township, who need help recovering. And that is a huge distinction that many people tried to make at that council meeting that night. And they still not only are insisting that it's not happening in their backyard, but they're also pushing out the only free organization that is in our backyard to help us and to help our citizens. And that is not going to fly on my watch, because I recognize the fact that it is happening right here, right now. And I recognize the fact that the City of Angels is distinctly different from other nonprofit organizations that are in the township. And for me, while other organizations in Hamilton get a $1 lease for 50 years, I would definitely extend that opportunity to City of Angels, because we can't quantify the cost that they're saving us in lives, in treatment, and other things.
Right, and support, and family support.
Family support.
I think, obviously one of the most important things City of Angels does is gets people in crisis into treatment, into detox and treatment, but the support that the family gets through groups, through meetings, is like you said, it cannot be quantified.
It can't be quantified.
So it's immeasurable. But how do you have an administration, a leadership in the mayor's office and the city council? How can we possibly have leadership that doesn't get it, that doesn't understand? How do we get rid of a not in my backyard mentality if the administration doesn't believe it's in their backyard?
Well, I think one of the failures that you will have, is not recognizing that there is a problem. If you don't recognize there's a problem, then you won't have the mindset or the means to correct the problem. So the first part of addressing any problem is to effectively admit that you have a problem, and then you can go about trying to correct the problem.
Ironically, I think that's the first step to recovery as well, admitting that you have a problem.
That's definitely the first step in solving a problem, is admitting that the problem exists. And so I don't think the City Council of Hamilton has admitted that the problem exists. And I certainly don't feel the mayor believes the problem exists.
The mayor...
Am I overstating it?
No, the mayor has not led on this situation at all. I held a press conference, and in reaction to that, they launched a website for HASA, and they have still, to this day, not filled all of the board memberships on that organization. And I think it's crazy to me that they don't even have the City of Angels listed as a recovery group on the HASA website. So there's no leadership whatsoever with the heroin epidemic. We've seen press conferences about the Ebola virus. We've seen press conferences about the enterovirus. We've seen press conferences about hepatitis. But we have seen no press conference from this administration about the heroin epidemic, which takes lives from our society every single day.
Mike?
Hello?
Dial back in. I don't know what happened.
Yep, I got you.
Hi.
Yeah, just the last thing I heard was his administration has not said one word about this, not had a press conference, and not filled the spot. Are we rolling or?
Yep.
Right. So this administration, to reiterate, this administration has not held one press conference on this epidemic, and has not even listed City of Angels as their recovery resource on the website.
Correct.
I mean, what does that say about administration? What does that say about the present mayor?
It says that she is incapable of leading on this particularly dangerous issue, or that she's completely oblivious to what's actually going on. I've said it before and I'll say it again. She's either oblivious or negligent or both.
Well, I'll go on record as saying I believe it's a little of both mixed together in a big bowl, and it's sprinkled with this at least 4 or 5 city council people.
Agreed.
They really, really, really don't get it. And I don't have a personal problem with anyone. There's no one I dislike, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Tea Party, Libertarian, Socialist. I could care less. I care about the issues that affect citizens, children especially, every single day. And if you have a mayor and the leadership of a town council that doesn't speak out, that doesn't get it, what message does that trickle down to kids that are contemplating or even involved in experimentation of underage drinking and marijuana if you don't have a leadership of a city that's addressing drugs?
Well, it shows that they're not being considered. They're not being thought of. They're not being educated on the problem. They don't matter. What matters to this administration, from what I can see, is to giving each other raises and not leading on the problem side of what's going on in the community. That's a huge issue. And it's proof in the pudding with only allowing $27,000 into drug education for our youth. And
that's a pittance, a drop in the bucket. And I
absolutely.
guarantee you, Don Ryland, with all his years of correctional experience, I mean, he can tell you what the Department of Corrections website shows. The average age of inmates is getting lower, and the average age of new inmates getting incarcerated is lower, and the percentage of inmates reporting addiction and underlying addiction to opiates and heroin is skyrocketing. Right, Don?
Exactly. I can tell you now, the average age that we see every day coming to the facility now is between the ages of 18 and 21. They are probably our largest population.
And it's all walks of life. I mean, this heroin doesn't discriminate, right, Amy?
No, absolutely not. And this administration is particularly insensitive to the youth of Hamilton. She dismantled the Youth Advisory Commission. And we have all, the three of us, have sat down. We've gone to the gallery classes. We've talked to teenagers in Hamilton. We've asked them what they want. We've been hosting open public forums throughout the township. We're going to have our third one on Thursday, the 27th. And we invite everyone to attend. This is in reaction to her refusing to debate me in 3 open debates at our 3 local high schools. And when teenagers show up to your open public forums and they tell you, we have nothing to do in Hamilton, we have no youth center, we want a youth center, and the mayor's reasoning for dismantling the Youth Advisory Commission was that there were no youth interested in being on it. So we had a room full of teenagers who said that they wanted to be on it, that they would be on it, that they would give input as to what we could do to get youth organizations together in Hamilton, something that we lack, we trail behind. And again, another thing that this mayor is negligent on.
Well, it's a real, I can't even believe it. What a shame.
It is a shame.
What a shame.
It is.
I just don't understand. I don't understand why we're skirting around this issue. Why we refuse or decide we don't want to. Address it. I mean, not talking about it is not going to make it go away.
No.
I don't understand.
It's not going to make it go away. It's an ugly issue, and she wants to be at ribbon cutting ceremonies, and she wants to be at the expansion of the animal shelter ceremonies. She doesn't want to be in front of people, families who are suffering. And that's who needs her the most. That's where leadership is needed the most right now.
Well, I think, by definition, I guess elected mayor, that's, a leader, but to lead, I wouldn't say she's leading. I don't think this leader's leading. I think she's leading from behind. She's following. What do you say, Amy and Don, to say Hamilton citizens who would listen to this and say, well, I don't know anybody that's addicted to heroin. I don't see how heroin is really that bad in Hamilton. Is it really that bad?
If for anyone to say they don't know nobody who's dealing with a heroin problem, maybe they are misled. I mean, we all know a lot of people, and sometimes when those individuals are dealing with, the heroin problems, they may not let it be known publicly, but there's always somebody that that is dealing with this issue. So, and again, maybe for that individual who says that, maybe it hasn't hit their immediate family. But if you go outside, I mean, they have to know a friend or somebody who's dealing with the issue.
And I just want to add to that if you happen to find the one person in Hamilton whose life has not been affected by addiction, then I think it needs to be pointed out to them that their life is affected by addiction because of crime, because it's going to affect their taxes. Because these people who are arrested, who are sent to prison instead of being treated like patients and sent to recovery, they're sent to prison, and you're paying for that. So to the one person who's never been affected by addiction, you are still paying for that.
That's a very good point. It affects all of us. We're all affected by this epidemic, each and every citizen of Hamilton. And like you said, their taxes. I mean, what are some of your other plans and your platform, maybe that doesn't just relate to addiction, but how we can show that it relates to addiction in some way? Obviously the youth. This mayor is really not taking youth partnership or collaboration too seriously.
Well, I definitely, for me, I know, because I see so many of our youth that's getting involved and making bad choices and come through the facilities. We have to engage our youth. One thing that, I am a firm believer that the youth are our future. One day we're all going to become, seniors. We're all going to get older. And we're going to rely on these same youth to lead Hamilton Township. And if we don't engage them now and be involved with their development, then we'll have issues and we have troubles later. So again, the youth are important. The youth to me are my passion, and they become my passion because, again, through my profession, I see firsthand what happens when they are not engaged, when they are left with idle minds and the choices that they make.
Mm-hmm. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm a mom. I have a 9-year-old and I have an 8-year-old, and the thought that they'll have nowhere to reach out to and no one to go to when they hit those critical years where their peers have more of an influence over them than I do and my husband does. That scares me more than anything. One of the ways that we also want to get this discussion going, and many other discussions, is through our town hall meetings. The last one that we hosted, half of the people that were there were teenagers and half of the people that were there were senior citizens. And just by talking openly, such a wonderful idea, such a wonderful concept came out. The kids were saying that they want a youth facility. Now, of course, if I introduce the fact that we want a youth facility, people will go crazy because it's going to cost money, right? So there was a senior citizen there who said, we have one of the best senior facilities in the state of New Jersey, but it closes at 6 p.m. Why couldn't we open it up to the youth after hours so that they could come in and have a place to go? And there's not just sports there, because some kids don't identify with sports. There's a movie room, there's a swimming pool, there's games, video games and things like that, where they could go, they could be together, they could socialize, and they could be safe. This is not something that came out of my mind. This is something that came out of getting half a room full of senior citizens and half a room full of teenagers. What an amazing thing to blossom out of that. And I think part of what we need to do is just listen to people. We are public servants. I've criticized the mayor for walking around saying that she's the CEO of Hamilton. Hamilton is not a corporation. Hamilton is a community. We need to remember that. We need to get back to our roots. We need to talk to people and listen to people.
And that's not what's happening now. You don't have an administration or a city council that's listening to people. I mean, that was what was paramount to me at city council meetings. I mean, they heard their citizens, but I don't believe they were listening.
Correct. I would totally agree with that statement. They always leave, this portion at the end for people to come up and voice their opinions, but they've already voted on all the laws, so it doesn't really matter what the opinion of the people are.
So it's just a superfluous, showing so they can check off that they had public comment.
That's correct.
So public comment wasn't public. In Hamilton, public comment is not public input. It's just public comment.
Correct. That's how it appears to me.
So under an Inman administration and the city council with Don Ryland on it and Joanne, it's going to be public input, not public comment.
Definitely.
And I wish that Joanne were here to talk about this, because she has talked about restructuring the order of the way that council is presented so that public input can be interjected before they vote on the laws that they're presenting. Joanne also wanted to talk about the addiction problem with senior citizens. They're given a lot of medications, opiates, things like that, and she doesn't want it to be forgotten that the elderly are also victims of addiction. And Joanne, I shouldn't say this without her here, but she actually is a senior citizen. She doesn't look like one. She looks really young, but she's retired and she's a senior, and she is also looking out for their best interest.
Absolutely. I mean, I made a movie, Kids Are Dying, and kids are dying, but I go across the country and I say this all the time, the second largest demographic in our country that's affected by an overdose of prescription medication is 54 to 67.
Wow.
It's the second highest demographic of people dying of an overdose. Our seniors are dying. Some of it's accidental. Some of it's purposeful. It's taking their own life over, medicating, taking too many pills, committing suicide. But a lot of it is poison, and doctors not talking to each other, pharmacies not talking to each other about medication being taken. We've got to address that. These are the people who built our country, who built our country, who we benefit from, and we're not doing enough about it.
Agreed. More open, transparent government is the way to solve this. I mean, if we recognize this is a problem, if we're talking about this as a problem, we will come up with the best solutions for our particular community.
And if we don't, we can't, with this administration, we can't even get past the first step. We're not even recognizing it. They refuse to admit that there's a problem there. They're pushing out City of Angels, one of the most important nonprofit organizations in Hamilton, doing the most for this issue, not just with intervention, not just with detox and treatment, but with family support, continued family support, led by great people, all volunteers, and one member of City Council who has unfortunately chosen not to rerun because of the personality attacks from other council members, and I witnessed it with my own two eyes. I was just disgusted to be at a city council meeting where grown professionals, some of whom I respect in their careers, were sitting there back and forth bickering about a nonprofit organization and the definition of a lease, when they could have very easily remedied the problem. But even after all the public comment, they were not interested in remedying the problem. They were interested in a vendetta on one city council person, and the people that are going to suffer because of that approach are the citizens of Hamilton Township.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I'm so embarrassed that you had to witness that. And I commend you, number one, for all of the work that you've done with children, with addiction, and getting your message out and educating our youth. And also the fact that you offered to pay the entire rent for the City of Angels. I was there that night. That touched my heart in a way that I can't even express. But you're an amazing person, and I thank you for spending time in Hamilton that night and as much as you do. I know that you were recently speaking at one of our high schools, and I can't thank you enough. We need more programs like that in Hamilton, and I would love to be able to facilitate that with you.
Yeah, I thank you. I'm literally, all I'm trying to do is be part of it. I'm one little piece of a lot of good solutions and a lot of good people out there. There's amazing parents who lost their children. I lost my mother to my addiction because of my crime and my gang activity. I lost my mother to a murder, and so it's part of my passion. I was one of those people. Don Ryland didn't personally lock me up. I was incarcerated at the jail or prison that he works at. But, corrections officers, they got the toughest job in the world. That expression that they walk the toughest beat in the state is absolutely true. Mm-hmm. And I'm an ex-con of 12 years behind the walls telling you that. This is a problem that affects every single person, and I'm just now part of the solution where I'm no longer part of the problem. I recently, last week, came into Hamilton High School West, and I did students in the morning. I did half the school in the morning with a very dynamic young speaker, and then we did an afternoon assembly with the older kids, the juniors and seniors. And there's been over 20 emails sent to me by staff members, which happens all the time. In the beginning, it was really crazy. I couldn't believe people were actually reaching out and telling us what kind of an impact we had. But now it happens every single day because we're making an impact everywhere. But 21 emails came from staff members at Hamilton High School West that their students are still talking about it a week later, that they're so impacted that they're going to counselors. They've gone home and talked to their parents about drugs and addiction. So obviously our youth is getting the message, and they're wanting to talk about it because they're experiencing it. But what does it say about a mayor that doesn't even talk to youth and, in fact, has eliminated the youth council?
Negligence. It shows absolute negligence. And, I'm glad that you came to one of our high schools. We have two other high schools, and I hope that you get to go to them. I mean, the reaction of the staff and of the students is because they're not hearing this stuff. They're not being educated on this stuff. And not that you don't have a wonderful message, because I know that you do. I've heard you speak. But if this is their first exposure to someone talking about addiction and their life story, then of course it's definitely going to have that much of an impact. And we need all three of our high schools to hear this message. We need our middle schools to hear this message, so that I believe that Paul Ressler from Topak lost his son, and his son started using drugs in middle school. I mean, that's where we need to reach. By high school, we may have lost them already. We might be too late. We need to get in middle schools. We have 3 middle schools, 3 high schools, and I hope that we can get you in all 6 of those schools.
Well, I've been, I reached out to Steiner. I reached out to the other Hamilton High School other than West. And I reached out to all 3 middle schools. And I've yet to hear back, get a booking. If it's not steered straight, if it's not me talking, it needs to be someone like us. I've even told all the 5 remaining schools that if they don't have it in their budget to pay for Steer Straight to come in, that I would come into any school, every school, absolutely free.
Wow, that's amazing.
If they can't, and if I was a mediocre message, if I was just kind of one other guy telling a story, I wouldn't be so, I wouldn't be pushing it so much. But I see what our program has been doing, and I see the reaction. So I want to get into the other 2 high schools. I want to get into Nottingham High School and the Steiner High School. I want to get into Reynolds Middle School, Grice, and Crockett. I was just looking on my sheet. Grice, Reynolds, and Crockett were all sent information. So was Nottingham and Steiner. Hamilton High School West, the only school that responded. And if you look at the demographics of Hamilton, I would say heroin per capita probably hits Hamilton High School West the lowest.
Wow.
Your two other demographics of Hamilton, probably, more middle class, more upper middle class, more affluent, is hitting those areas even greater. And so Steered Straight wants to go with all the schools. We have a program second to none as far as the presentation is concerned. I did a parent community event absolutely free. Every parent who comes out to a community event, we give a 12-panel drug test, a $48 drug test through a charity in Florida. We give it away free. So you want to talk about giving every parent in Hamilton a free drug test kit that they can have in case they think someone's on drugs in their family. They get it for free with a parent presentation, and I can't get Nottingham or Steiner to bring it into their school. So I believe that some of that trickled down from a council and a mayor. When you have leadership of a township expressing openly that they don't believe it's in their backyard, how could you be surprised that administrators of a board of education is going to take it any differently?
I'm not surprised.
So we need new leadership in Hamilton. We need a new mayor. I can say this because I'm not a Hamilton citizen. I almost want to go move to Hamilton and register to vote.
Yes,
so I can vote for you.
Yes, I think you should.
but I don't live in Hamilton, so I can say this. I have no agenda. I have absolutely no agenda. My only agenda is I want to keep kids off drugs, and I want to get them to postpone their experimentation with alcohol until they're 21. I don't want my past to be their future, and I took enough away from the citizens in Jersey. 12 years incarcerated, 2 years in a halfway house. I had a broken neck in prison, and the New Jersey Department of Corrections spent $1.2 million on my neck.
Wow.
I had surgery thanks to the Department of Corrections. I got cancer while I was in prison. The Department of Corrections spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on surgery and chemotherapy for me while I was in prison. I cost the state of Jersey a lot of money. And so for the rest of my life, I'm going to spend every waking moment making a difference in this issue, and that's why I believe wholeheartedly that the citizens of Hamilton need a new mayor, need 2 new council members with fresh blood, a long-term corrections officer who knows this issue like the back of his hand, and an educator who's been working with kids for over 30 years who knows this issue like the back of her hand. You need to elect Mayor Amy Inman, and you need to put Don and Joanne on the city council. That's what needs to happen in Hamilton, New Jersey. And like I said, I have no agenda. No one's paying me to say this. I've never met Don or Joanne in my life, but I know what they stand for. I know their bios, and I've read what they have stated, and I believe wholeheartedly that these 3 real leaders need to be elected in Hamilton.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. Well, so how are we doing on time, Art?
In about 20 minutes.
We have 20
We have
minutes
20 more minutes?
Yeah, 15.
Man, 15? That's good, man. Listen, we need to talk about what's going to take place right away when we have a new mayor and 2 new city council members in city council after the election's over. I mean, kind of what are some of your first steps in January, Amy?
Some of my first steps are definitely going to be presenting back to the council with 2 new council members on it, the idea of giving a lease to the City of Angels in the amount of $1 for a long period of time, 25, 50 years. It's been done in the past. It's not something new to Hamilton. I can't stress enough. We have a health crisis on our hands. City of Angels is different from other nonprofit organizations in that they are 100% volunteer. And I think that distinguishes them from the others, and they are here to help us at no cost to the Hamilton taxpayer. Whereas if we don't have them helping us, then there is a cost to the Hamilton taxpayer, because these people, kids, adults, addicts are going to go into, they're going to tie up our police resources. They're going to go into the municipal court system. The other thing that I want to implement in Hamilton immediately is more money towards drug education. This is something that is very near and dear to my heart. My son is 9. He will be going into middle school in 2 years. And I know that that is the point that they need to be reached at middle school. And I don't think that we're spending enough on drug education. The other thing, we need more of police presence out there. We have 14 less police officers than we did 12 years ago. And my goal is to eliminate, currently in the administration, there's a press secretary position. I feel that position can be eliminated. The press secretary makes over $110,000 a year. And right then and there, that will add 2 new police officers onto our overburdened police force. And who can help people, and that's the other thing. We need to get more of a positive image out there about our police officers. I look to other cities and what they're doing, and I look at Trenton, New Jersey, and they started a Facebook program where they're highlighting an officer a week. So they put their picture up on Facebook. They tell you about this police officer, how long they've been on the force, what they're doing in the community, so that people feel that they can relate to police officers. We need to break down, right now, our police officers only have the ability to respond from one call to the next. Again, leading from behind. We have no presence in the community, only to respond to a bad situation. So when kids see police officers, it's always involving a bad situation. It's never involving youth sports or, I saw the greatest thing when I drove past Hamilton West the other day. There was a police officer pulled over. There was a red light, and he was pulled over in front of the school, and there were 4 kids hanging out on the side of the car, talking, laughing, joking around with the police officer. That was a beautiful sight to me. That's what we need to see more of. We need to see more trust, more interaction between kids and cops so that they feel safe and they don't feel like they're going to be in that situation where the only time they see police is when something bad is happening.
Absolutely. And I say this all the time, what's happening in our country, the way law enforcement is being painted by the media, broad brush in this country is absolutely despicable. To paint law enforcement with this broad brush that they all wake up racist in the morning and want to shoot unarmed individuals is absurd, and that's trickling down to our kids. And then if you have a city that's undermanned, where, like you said, police officers are serving from behind, leading from behind, always in catch-up mode. Things get missed. Real important things get missed, and then I think we all lose. We all lose as citizens.
Absolutely. Do you want to add to that, Don? As far as the youth
community policing is very important. It's a concept that made a lot of inroads years ago, and I think nationally we moved away from it, and many, many big departments and small departments alike are moving back towards community policing. How could you have and implement community policing if you don't have enough cops?
You can't. And, another thing that I want to, point out about the city of Trenton and what their police force is doing is every year at Thanksgiving now, they host a big football game for the kids in the city of Trenton. Every year at Christmas time, they host a big basketball tournament for the kids in the city of Trenton. They also host a big trunk or treat for the kids in the city of Trenton. So this is such a pattern. It's a great pattern of positivity, interacting the youth with the police force. And that is something that we need to bring to Hamilton desperately, because kids who are suffering from addiction or who are going to commit a crime, at least they know they can turn to someone. And hopefully, with the implementation of Project Save, they'll turn to a police officer who will then turn to a counselor to be able to intervene and get that kid help when it's most crucial.
Yeah, that's prevention. That's being proactive. It's not being reactive. The mayor administration, her administration, are reactive kind of people when it comes to this: crime, drugs, addiction, youth involvement. How do you eliminate the youth council? I don't understand that.
I don't either. That's not the only thing that she's eliminated. She's eliminated the Women's Advisory Council. Women make up 52% of the population in Hamilton, and she does not have a single paid woman as a director. And as a woman who lives in the township, I find that appalling. So she's extremely insensitive. The other thing that she's done is she's taken away free permits for senior citizens, for the disabled, and for veterans. I don't know how much that could possibly be saving the township, but it certainly aided her in giving herself a raise and all of her directors raises. Meanwhile, if a senior citizen needs a new water heater, they now have to pay I cannot quote the exact amount. Someone told me it was $165, but I wasn't able to confirm that. For heat.
Yeah, that's just great. Now, what is it going to cost us, prematurely if there's, medical problems? What is it going to cost us, That's crazy. It's just not being proactive. So if you have a reactive mayor, a reactive city council that can't get along with other people, that take public comment instead of public input, and that push a nonprofit organization that is helping many, many, many people in, as you described, the public social health crisis that we are in the midst of, how on earth are we going to solve the problem? How on earth are we going to turn the tide on the epidemic? And it's not something that we're just chicken little and we're trying to tell everybody the sky's falling. Hamilton, as you said earlier, Hamilton has the most reported Narcan reversals in all of Mercer County.
That also does not include the non-reversals.
It doesn't include the non-reverse. It doesn't include the first responders, like you said. It doesn't include the parents. It doesn't include people who are not, coming to the hospital. I mean, this is a problem, and if we don't work together, we don't, be more proactive. We're gonna lose more lives, and it's not worth losing one life. It's not.
That's absolutely right.
Another thing too, Amy and Don, we're measuring a lot of this in deaths. I was on a town hall forum a couple of days ago, and they were talking about how fantastic Narcan's working. They had 101 overdose deaths in the county, and now they're on pace to get about 80. And they touted that as a huge success. That we only have 80 dead instead of 101 dead. First of all, I know that numbers are better, but I don't really look at that as a success. If we had 8, maybe, but 80 people dead in the county from heroin, I don't think that's a success. But the thing that scared me is they had reported over 2,000 Narcan reversals.
Wow.
So does that mean the problem's better or worse? I believe that means the problem's worse.
Well, I think it means the problem's worse. I think it also means that what's the next step? After you deploy Narcan, what is the next step? Is there something in place to help these addicts? Is there something in place that's going to prevent them from overdosing again? Right now in Hamilton, there is not.
Well, I believe that, you don't have some crystal ball. You're not some, all-knowing person, but you can come into office with a lot more answers and a lot more understanding and a much more open mind with a long-term corrections officer who understands this system and a long-term educator who understands the system. And all three people are talking about prevention. And all three people are proactively talking about not only listening to their citizens, but inputting what their citizens' feedback is, and taking this problem, rather than by the tail, taking it by the throat.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate your time. I'm very happy we had this chance to talk today. I hope that this gets out to as many Hamilton residents as possible. I think that the citizens of Hamilton need to start asking a lot more questions in these waning months. Election Day is coming up. Election Day is November 3rd, right?
Yes, it is.
So November 3rd, it's not a presidential election, and a lot of times you have local elections, and people don't think it's as important to go out. It's more important to go out. Well, politics is local. What happens and it changes and affects your life. It happens more in local politics than it does in national election. It is more important than ever to get to the polls and to cast your vote. And if you don't agree with being proactive, if you think things are Shangri-La in Hamilton Township and you don't believe, it's affected you, I wish you'd wake up. I wish you'd understand that it does. If it doesn't affect you directly, your family, it's affecting you collaterally, as Amy Inman stated. Your taxes, as Don Ryland said, the cost of incarcerating someone, not treating this problem. This is a problem that's not going to go away unless we put leaders in place that are going to implement policies and procedures, show the openness and cooperation from a township on a nonprofit organization that is doing amazing things to save and change lives, and support families. That's the huge part of this. Family support. So if you're a Hamilton voter, or if you know one, you call them up and you let them know on November 3rd. That's coming up, November 3rd, Election Day. It's more important than ever to go out and vote locally in Hamilton, Township, New Jersey, and you vote a new mayor into office. You vote for Amy Inman, and you put Don Ryland and Joanne, you put them in that city council seat. You bring a trifecta of change to this county, to this city. You put a mayor and 2 city council people in seats where they'll make a difference, and they'll not only listen, but they will listen and implement what they hear.
That's right. November 3rd is very important. It's going to be one of the lowest voter turnouts because of the fact that Assembly is at the top of the ticket. You said it right when you said there's no gubernatorial election, there's no presidential election. So we really need votes. We need votes to help Hamilton. We need votes to make positive change in Hamilton. We need votes for positive leadership in Hamilton, which we are lacking right now.
Right. You know what? Because of that low voter turnout, I want people to know, especially, obviously, if you're listening to this show, if you listen to City of Angels Radio, this is an issue that's very close to your heart. A lot of times we're pessimistic in addiction and in recovery. A lot of times we don't think our vote matters. A lot of times we don't think our vote counts. If you live in Hamilton, New Jersey, it is more important than ever that you get out because of such a low voter turnout, because it's not going to take as much to make a change. And so we can really make a change. And the people who are going to sit home and vote are those same people who don't think that there's a problem. Those same people who don't think there's a problem, who think this mayor and this administration is going to do fine, that it's status quo, because why would we need anything other than status quo if they don't believe there's a problem? Well, if you're listening to this show and you support City of Angels, you need to understand that there is a problem, and with a low voter turnout on November 3rd, your vote is 10 times more important than it usually is, because your vote will make the difference. Your vote will count more in this election than in any other election where there's a higher voter turnout. The lower the voter turnout, the more your vote means. So get out and vote. Get out and vote and put a new administration and two new city council members in seats in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. Donna, Amy, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say real quick as we finish and close up? Maybe a closing statement?
I just want to say that I got into politics because of my volunteer activity, and I am passionate about Hamilton's success. I think we're at a pivotal point in Hamilton. We need strong leadership. We need economic development, which we've been lacking. We need to put the right people in the right offices. And we can't force organizations like City of Angels out of our backyard. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I own a rescue pet, so I care about the shelter too. But I also think that we need to invest more money in education for our children who are going to be in situations where they have to make life-altering decisions. And without that power of education, they might make the wrong choice. And it might be my kid who makes the wrong choice. I hope and pray that that never happens. But that's why I'm running. I'm running for a positive effect for Hamilton Township residents. Go ahead, Don.
Just in closing, as I stated before, excuse me, I think it's very important that we engage our youth. I know one of the reasons that I moved to Hamilton Township because, I believe that Hamilton, we live in a great town, and this was a town that I felt was good. It was good to raise my family in, and again, when all the years I spent in corrections, and I see how, what has happened over the years, and how I see so many of our citizens throughout Mercer County come through the facility. I had to get involved with the community to become part of the solution. And when you look at what's going on now and the importance of this election, as we all have stated, that it's projected to be a low turnout. Well, if you're tired of status quo and you want to see change, then you have to be part of the process for change to happen. And every vote does count. We can all say we want change. We can all say there are issues and there are concerns. But if we listen to what the forecast is and say, well, my vote won't matter, then now we're not becoming part of the solution, but we're now becoming part of the problem. So it's important on November 3rd that everyone get out and vote. Everyone get out and vote.
All right, you heard it. Be about change. Let's make the changes in Hamilton that we need to make. Let's put an administration in place that gets it and can make a difference for us all. And that's part of the solutions, and that's what this show is all about, solutions. So we'll see you next Wednesday. We'll see you and hear from you next Wednesday as we'll be back with an all-new show. And we ask you to please let someone in Hamilton know to get out and vote November 3rd. Put Amy Inman and Don and Joanne in the office, and let's make a difference in Hamilton Township. That's a solution that you can be a part of. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you again. All right, welcome to the Solutions Show. My name is Michael De Leon, and COA, City of Angels Radio, brings you this show every week, and we're talking about the solutions. And today we have two very guests, two people, part of a three-person team that is running for mayor and council in Hamilton, New Jersey. And so we have, I like to just say mayor-elect Amy Inman, but I'll save that for a couple of months. But Amy Inman running for mayor of Hamilton, Hamilton Township, New Jersey. In absence today is Joanne, but Don Ryland, who's running for council, is also with us. So, Amy, Don, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Joanne regrets. Joanne regrets that.
Why don't we start kind of with an introduction, a little bit about what's happening, the statement you want to read from Joanne, who couldn't be with us today, and let everybody know what's happening in Hamilton.
Unfortunately, Joanne could not be with us today because she is really sick. She won't be able to attend our fundraiser later this evening either. But she is in full support of our cause. She's also certified by TOPAC to administer naloxone. And she's been an educator for 35 years as a teacher. And she believes in education about drug addiction.
Great, and as do you and Don.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, as part of your platform, I mean, I wish that, in this great city of Hamilton and this great county of Mercer and our great state of New Jersey, we weren't talking about it as an epidemic, but that's exactly what it is. So you mentioned naloxone, a drug for reversal of an opiate overdose if we get to the person in time. And now, thanks to Governor Christie and some amazing advocates in New Jersey, that's